Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Good morning. This is the open door, open to God's love, open to the direction of the Spirit, and open to frank and candid exchanges on the timely topics of the day. And given the day, we have all kinds of topics. I would like to begin, however, with a brief thank you to our longtime introducer, Bob Olson, who is sick. He's very sick, and we ask your prayers for him. I think he's better than he was a week ago. He's walking. He's in a good rehab location. Bob, as many of you know, is in his 80s and is also struggling with cancer. And as he and I have commented on more than one occasion, if it's not one damn thing, it's another. At any rate, Bob, you are very much in our prayers this morning. I can introduce now our panel. Dr. Rhonda Shervin, Professor of Philosophy, Catholic writer, prolific Catholic writer, and radio evangelist of the Roman Catholic persuasion. And she actually is the reason why we're here this morning. Also joining us is a member of the National Committee of the American Solidarity Party, Desmond Silvera, from Chino Hills, California, and from another part of the country altogether, Christopher Hunt. And we congratulate Christopher because he is the proud father of a new daughter, Mercedes Angelica. And the Angelica has something to do with Mother Angelica, does it not, Christopher?
Yeah, she's named after Our Lady of Mercy, or Nuestra Señora de la Merced, and Mother Angelica, so yes.
That's a wonderful combination. Our focus for today is threefold. We have two items that we want to begin with that really surfaced last week. And then we're going to turn to the next plank of the American Solidarity Party. We've been walking the plank by plank, for several weeks now. But last meeting, we were reflecting with impetus from Pope Francis on the distinctive gifts of the young and the old. As I recall, the young were touted for their energy and vision, and the old were touted for their wisdom and experience. And it was mentioned that this conjunction of the young and the old surfaced in the prophet Joel. But if you do a little scriptural reconnoitering, you can see that what the prophet Joel had to say was picked up again and again and again, and not least by Peter, Simon Peter, in the Acts of the Apostles. So first item on the agenda then is to hearken back to this, alert given by the prophet Joel, but now as Peter used it, preaching to the crowd in Acts 19, verses 14 to 21. But Peter, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice and spoke to them. Ye men of Judea, and all you that dwell in Jerusalem, be this known to you, and with your ears receive my words. For these are not drunk. Well, no one would ever think that of us. For these are not drunk as you suppose, seeing it is but the third hour of the day. Those of us in California, well, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. But this is what was spoken by the prophet Joel. And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith the Lord, I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And upon my servants indeed, and upon my handmaids, I will pour out in those days of my Spirit, and they shall prophesy. Well, we don't think, not for a nanosecond, the American Solidarity Party is prophetic in a scriptural sense, in a core scriptural sense. But I do think it's fair to say that the American Solidarity Party has picked up on the spirit of Joel and certainly has taken to heart the theme that faith is not to be, as Pope Francis has often said, shut up in the sanctuary, but is to be taken out into the public sphere. Thoughts before I go ahead, panel? I recall Desmond, as you might recall, claimed that he was neither young nor old.
Yeah, I'm solidly middle-aged at the age of 40. I see the value in that quote. I don't have anything particularly insightful to say. The olds have
your voice is very soft, Desmond.
I'm sorry. It's 8 o'clock over here, and I didn't wake up too long ago.
You've got to be declamatory.
I don't have anything particularly insightful to say about that. I agree with it. The old have their much value in their wisdom, and the young have much value in their energy. Working together, we can get a lot accomplished.
What's the age range, do you think, in the Solidarity Party?
So I used to look at the demographics very closely, and we had everyone from late teens through 81. And I would say that the distribution there wasn't a huge discrepancy between the young and the old. There were a lot of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. It was pretty balanced regarding age.
Maybe the average age would be 40.
I would say that the average age is probably in the late 30s or mid-30s.
Now, I'm just interjecting here, and Rhonda, I haven't forgotten that you're poised to say something, but among other developments that Desmond Silveria has been closely monitoring is California catastrophe. Senator Dianne Feinstein, who is about to run for her 6th term in the Senate at the tender age of 84. What should we think about that? If we weren't concerned with libel laws, we might say, as many have, there's no fool like an old fool. But we'll save that comment for another time. Rhonda, what were you about to say?
I'm thinking, I don't know, I keep, generally speaking in my teachings, for those who don't know me around the Turban, I've been teaching philosophy for 50 years. Generally, I'm emphasizing the positive, but when on this program, Open Door, even though I joined the American Solidarity Party at age 80, when I read this platform, these negatives keep coming to my mind as in the following. Okay. You have this, I don't know if you're all familiar with Ave Maria University. Here you have this American dream story this little kid who used to flip pizzas. He was the first kid to flip pizzas in 42nd Street in New York City. I probably saw him do it. He becomes the head of Domino's Pizza. He starts a law school. He starts a university. He moves it down to his favorite vacation place, Naples, Florida. He buys this land. What he's trying to do is build like a kind of Catholic village where you wouldn't have to go to the drugstore and see condoms at the cashier when you're walking out, you see. So they have all sorts of difficulties, and the whole scheme didn't work the way he thought it would, okay, because of all these difficulties, as in people bought houses to be near Ave Maria, but then different feuds took place within the university, and I don't know the inside of these feuds, but in any case, then people somehow, it was a whole mess that came with trying to do this. Okay. Now, the question I have is this. When Pope Francis says, don't be within a little sanctuary, was a scheme like this, which is a sort of Benedict option type scheme, was a scheme like this to try to make a village where people didn't have, when they go into the workplace, as in you have to sell abortifacient contraceptives to anyone who walks in the drugstore if you're a cashier at the drugstore, right?
Or a pharmacist.
Right. And if you go to a medical school that isn't a strong Catholic medical school, they might not let you continue unless they teach you how to do abortions first, and you have to do sample abortions, and on and on and on. So this platform, the way you have it, looks as if, this is an obvious thing to do, and there are no problems. The problems are so huge underlying the whole society now, at least half devoted to, evil moral choices in one way or another, or at least the freedom to make evil moral choices. So how does, I look at this and it seems utopian in the sense that, I agree with everything on the platform, but it seems to me the problem runs much deeper. So I keep saying we're going to explore that on some of these programs, but I know you're trying to just expose the platform first. But anyway, if anyone wants to speak to that kind of issue, I would be happy to hear your thoughts.
Now, Christopher, I want to call on you because you're what I would call an honest worker.
Yes.
Desmond might be. I'm not sure. I don't have the whole skinny on him. But Rhonda and I have been caught up in the academic life. And I don't think we're ones to address the nitty-gritty in a number of ways that you certainly could. Is this crazy utopianism, or has it maybe been the case that Yahweh, may his name be blessed, knows that we're the weakest of the weak, and if we succeed, we can't take any credit for it. It will be his doing.
Well, I don't think it's utopian. When in conversations with this, I've been told that it's a pipe dream.
I can't hear you. I can't hear. You're speaking too softly, Christopher.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll try to speak a little louder.
Talk it to us.
Yeah, I've been told that this whole idea for me is a pipe dream and things like that. But really, if you look at it, it's quite practical, and it's not really a pipe dream. You have, I know there's like if you've ever heard of the company or it's a supermarket called Winco, for instance, right? They're up in the Northwest, like Washington, Oregon. I don't know how far around they are, but they're an employee-owned supermarket, and they're a great supermarket, and they have a very large number of regular workers that are millionaires because they give stock in the company as part of the thing. So, like those are kind of ways that you could work this into reality, and also there's which I've watched a few things on it on the Mondragon Corporation in Spain, right? And
yes.
and yeah, so these things are a possibility. Now, the big problem is the greed. You know, like the one part of the encyclical by Pope John Paul II that we all read to prepare for this. You know, it's really practical to live, to try to turn to these things, but there's also the issue of what capitalism like will allow when it comes to corporations, like huge corporations, and how they distribute their money, and when it comes to, like, he doesn't exactly mention the stock market in there, but he alludes to it about how like the company can't be used to give money to people outside of it when the people that are inside as the laborers aren't getting their fair and just wage. So it's very possible, but it's an uphill battle because, you know, the corporations and the government are hand in hand. You know, we always get told, even by the so-called good politicians, you know, that, you know, like for instance, the whole pro-life issue, you know, when it comes to abortion, you know, like several years ago, whenever all those original videos from Planned Parenthood came out, it was the first real victory we had against abortion since Roe v. Wade, and we had Boehner there, and we could have, back then, I think it was 2010, we could have completely defunded Planned Parenthood. We won. We were on the battlefield. We finally won the battle, and right when we were about to slam down the winning blow, what does Boehner do on a Friday evening? He comes up and ties a white flag on the sword, right? And so what we have to do is get to the point to where we could get good people into the government so that we could have honest and just laws put in place to cause the kind of things that we're working for, as well as us, the people, coming together to do what we can to create it, like the people who created Winco or Mondragon or things like that. So it's an uphill battle, but it's not really utopian. I don't think. I don't think it's a pipe dream. I think it's something that is a real reality, and I don't think that the Catholic Church would continue with the agenda of Catholic social teaching if it was something that was completely unreasonable.
Oh, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Thank you. So I'm really going off on tangent in the sense that I'm thinking, so you have people in this drugstore or pharmacy, you have people there getting good wages, they're getting maybe profit share, all these good things are happening that are listed here, and meanwhile, the things they're selling are killing babies in the womb. Isn't this wonderful? I mean it in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's definitely uphill battle.
We and Christopher was the first this morning to pick up on this. Last week we were talking about what capitalism is and what capitalism isn't. and what the alternatives might be. And so I appended for discussion today, and this would take us past the Prophet Joel. I appended for discussion 4 or 5 numbers from John Paul II's Centesimus Annus, which I think represents the core Catholic social teaching at this point. There's always room for development. But I'm going to look not at number 42, but number 43. I don't know how handy the chunk of the encyclical is for you. I think 43 is directly related to what we've been discussing. It begins, the Church has no models to present. Models that are real and truly effective can only arise within the framework of different historical situations. That was something that our good friend Commander Al emphasized last week. Different historical situations through the efforts of all those who responsibly confront concrete problems, nitty-gritty stuff in all their social, economic, political, and cultural aspects, as these interact with one another, so the rivers converge. Now, for such a task, the Church offers your social teaching as, and this is underscored, an indispensable and ideal orientation. Excuse me. A teaching which, as already mentioned, recognizes the positive value of the market and of enterprise, but which at the same time points out that these need to be oriented towards the common good. That's the standard of the American Solidarity Party. This teaching also recognizes the legitimacy of workers' efforts to obtain full respect for their dignity and to gain broader areas of participation in the life of industrial enterprises, so that while cooperating with others and under the direction of others, they can, in a certain sense, work for themselves. Work for themselves. Now that was a theme of John Paul's encyclical Laborem Exercens, earlier encyclical. They can, in a certain sense, work for themselves through the exercise of their intelligence and freedom. And I had mentioned last time around a core metaphysical foundation for all of this. Everything that is realizes itself in action. And so true liberation has to do with the liberation to fully realize one's potential. And what's distinctive for the human person is intelligence and freedom. And all of that is woven together in this single paragraph. But maybe that's too abstract. I know that John Paul II sometimes said to friends of his, they say that everything I write is too abstract. So, unless somebody jumps in, I'm going to go right to the platform.
Well, one thing, if I could jump in for a second.
Sure.
If you've read some of the more previous encyclicals, it doesn't seem quite as abstract. If you're reading it in light of the other encyclicals going back to Rero Navarro on, there's so much in there that, in light of that, you could take so much more out, because that's the way I've tried to read these encyclicals is in in a chronological order, and I think doing that helps it to not sound so very abstract.
All right. Well, maybe I could just add a bit more from John Paul II. And this Centesimus Annus, well, the title of that encyclical, 100 years, he's referring back to the work of Leo XIII in his encyclicals. So here's a pertinent section. This is the second paragraph. If by capitalism is meant an economic system which recognizes the fundamental and positive role of business, the market, private property, and the resulting responsibility for the means of production, as well as free human creativity. That human creativity is a theme developed by Michael Novak, who died just a short time ago, as well as free human creativity in the economic sector, then the answer is certainly in the affirmative, even though it would perhaps be more appropriate to speak of a business economy or a market economy or simply a free economy. But if by capitalism is meant a system in which freedom in the economic sector is not circumscribed within a strong juridical framework, which places it at the service of human freedom in its totality, and which sees it as a particular aspect of that freedom, the core of which is ethical and religious, then the reply is certainly negative.
How does consumerism come into this?
Desmond, your turn.
You could have everything in this plank, and still what people are buying are idiotic luxuries, while other people are starving. On and on and on.
I know you're not referring to Guinness Stout.
Who?
Guinness Stout. The finest brew, whatever was brewed.
That's a reasonable luxury.
I guess what I'm saying is in all these things I've been raising for the past 3 months or so, is there's some deeper issue here. That is capitalism, which I like the idea of changing the word to free market or something. I love that encyclical of John Paul II. I thought it was wonderful. Anyhow, okay, you could have all that. If you still have consumerism, you have this thing that instead of making sure food first for people to eat, instead you have all these businesses based on selling completely unnecessary luxury items.
All right, Desmond, it's your turn. What do we say about consumerism?
That's a good observation. I'm not sure our platform addresses consumerism at all. I think that the vast majority of the people in the party would agree that being overly materialistic is a bad thing, but I'm not sure how it might be government's role to curb consumerism, especially in our capitalistic American society.
Yeah, because you see, the thing would be people would say, well, it doesn't matter if everybody has these luxuries, because the making of the luxuries provide jobs for workers who would otherwise join the poor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never considered that before. In regard to our party platform, but I agree that consumerism is an issue.
Oh, okay. I'm happy that, I think this dialogue with someone who isn't part, even though I joined the party, isn't part of the whole growth of this party or a major player at all, but just an outsider on this radio show, that it helps to see what people might have on their minds when they're looking at this.
I agree.
Anything to add?
I wonder. So I wonder if move or if. Well, you tell me. What do you think? So I think we are in agreement that our overly consumeristic society, our overly materialistic society, isn't isn't ideal in that aspect, but at what level should government be involved in managing that? What are your thoughts?
Are you asking me or just everyone?
Anyone.
Oh,
I guess
okay.
you in particular.
Oh, me in particular, yeah.
Yes.
I'm torn between the fact that I happen to have been brought up by atheist ex-communists who were McCarthy informers and who were virulent Republicans, okay? Then I become a Catholic at age 21, and I get into Catholic social teachings and the glories of Dorothy Day and so on and so forth, and I begin to question the assumption that I was taught as a kid that capitalism is glorious. All we saw in the school were beautiful films about the steel industry with, pictures of glowing steel flowing out of factories, and we were pro-union, but then we hear that unions corrupt also, a lot of them. So I got completely torn between these perspectives. So basically, because of that background, I would not want government except local government to control everything in order to eliminate consumerism. On the other hand, it seems as if, but I don't even know if that was so. If it was called a Christian party, half the Christians think abortifacient contraceptives are fine. They don't even know they're abortifacient. So I've been big in the pro-life movement, so that's why that's a key issue for me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it was called Christian, it wouldn't mean that there shouldn't be drugstores that sell contraceptives illegal. They would be illegal, right? I mean, it could be, but probably not, even if the party was a Christian party.
Yeah, that'd be a really hard thing to accomplish. But I think consumerism isn't really something that the government can tackle without being completely that's controlling lives to an extent. I think to such a far extent that it would be almost like a communist regime, looking at Stalin. But I think the role is where is the role to curb consumerism? The role is in mom and dad, at home, in the family. The role is in the church, and the church evangelizing the people, and the church, and the priests and the bishops preaching and evangelizing in a way that will actually reach people inside and outside the church. So I don't think consumerism is really something that you could throw into the hands of the government. I don't think that's reasonable, and I think that would open up a can of worms or.
Okay, but here you have in things I've read about communist Russia, you didn't have consumerism because most of the people were poor. It's so confusing to me. Or just now, I mean, every week I hear something else that confuses me. So I live in Texas, and someone told me yesterday, that she was worried about a stalker, and the police said to her, well, just carry a gun because the police will never get there on time. Be sure to carry a gun. The idea that we don't need to have guns because the police will protect us. I just hear these things every day, almost something like that. So, in relation to these platforms, the idea of, well, we have local people who will protect us. We don't need government to protect us. The local people in subsidiarity will protect us. Maybe.
Well, let me offer a couple of suggestions, and in reverse order. When it comes to government leadership with regard to consumerism, I wouldn't think it would make any sense at all, and I would think it would violate subsidiarity and personal responsibility for any kind of government office or agency to say you can't buy salmon with your bagels unless it's once a year or some such thing. That doesn't make sense. But I think the government could, in terms of its larger policies, point us in the direction of taking care of what's most important first. For example, I think the government in Puerto Rico could say, yes, this costs a lot of money, but this is what we ought to be spending our money on, namely the rehabilitation of a broken society. And the government could say, yes, we have not only an aging infrastructure across the country, but we have whole road systems and bridges and public buildings that are really in sorry shape. And we need to concentrate our revenues in the direction of building the basic things that are necessary. And that, I think, sends a general message, although I'm so sorry about that phrase. That gives us a direction that we ought to be spending our money on what's most important, instead of saying we can only spend a little bit because we have to let businesses who have no orientation other than making a profit be free from any kind of taxation. I think if the government spending is ordered to real and substantial and enduring questions, that will set a tone with regard to consumeristic sorts of things. On the gun front, it's a well-known arguing point on the part of those who want to have fewer and fewer restrictions on guns, to say that the fewer restrictions on guns there are, the fewer will be gun deaths, because people who have guns and are violent will find themselves running up against people who have guns and are perfectly capable and willing and trained and ready to defend themselves. Now, it's one thing to say that a person who has been carefully vetted can have a gun that's required for self-defense. It's another thing to say that somebody who has the money and the peculiar interest can travel the country at gun fairs and arm himself or herself with hundreds of assault rifles. You have to make some basic distinctions.
Oh yeah, right. Okay.
Now, in making these
so, but would that be national or local? Those rules, those laws.
I think that given the way things work, it'll start out local and only gradually reach a federal level. Because if you start with a federal level, I think the thing is going to be so full of holes and so blind to local distinctions and differences that it won't go anywhere. I think the record at the federal level on gun legislation is that courts have turned back more and more efforts to restrict gun legislation. Nonetheless, if we don't make basic distinctions, so-and-so, if properly vetted, can own weapons for self-defense, and so-and-so, who, unless he or she shows up on some sort of government watch list, can collect 100 assault rifles. If we don't make those basic distinctions, nothing at all is going to work. I'm sure everybody is tired of hearing me quote John Stuart Mill, famously said, "No philosophy, if conjoined with a universal idiocy, will survive." We have to do basic social science, we have to do basic statistical analysis, but there are some distinctions that are patently obvious that we have to call attention to.
Very good, very good. Thank you.
Well, what the heck?
No, that's the best thing I've heard in a long time. Thank you.
Well, you just wait. You just wait. Come up with something next week to rival it, and Desmond will. By the way, getting back to you, Desmond, and there have been talks about what's ideal and what's not ideal, and what's practical and what's not practical. Before we turn to justice in the workplace, the platform plank that we're about to look to next, noticing that we only have 17 minutes left, how fares the run for governor? And let it not be passed over in silence that you're recruiting people to run for senator.
So I haven't made, to be completely honest, I haven't made so much progress in evaluating an interest level in me running for governor. I haven't gotten any material support so far. I think it's still early in the process, so that's where it stands. And yesterday in conversation among the California group, we were discussing how Dianne Feinstein may be challenged by someone even more liberal than her, and we thought about how we really ought to get behind someone that is more to our liking. And so I did some research, and we're moving forward from there. It would be nice. It would be awesome if someone in the party decided to run for senator, but it's really difficult to find anyone willing to step up. So we may have to back either someone else or maybe even recruit someone else into the party.
Well, I hereby, in the absence of my wife, Desmond, I hereby, in the absence of my wife, but in public, pledge $25 a month. How do you like them apples? $25 a month to your gubernatorial run.
I appreciate that very much.
You got it. All right. By way of easy and natural transition, we turn to justice in the workplace, the platform plank that we wanted to look at today. And I wanted to look to 4 items in particular because time is getting short. This is the 3rd bullet point. Extra resources and intention towards the needs of disabled workers. We have a strong disability contingent within the party who really monitor questions having to do with the disabled workers. Extra resources and attention towards the needs of disabled workers, including a redoubling of efforts to break down all barriers that prevent disabled persons from achieving their full potential contributions to society and the economy. And guess what? Assisted suicide is not the kind of extra resource that makes any sense at all, although it's a major push here in California. And the party is supporting, in many ways, legislation against, at the national level, Rhonda, for whatever it's worth, and I think it's worth a lot if you can get it, assisted suicide. So that's one step. And we talked about the young and the old. I'm going to skip down 2 bullet points. More aggressive steps to eliminate discrimination against older workers. That's some of us. And now, Rhonda, you'd raised a particular question during the week. This is an interesting point. exploration of alternative employee benefit arrangements, especially to address challenges to fairness in the workplace arising from, but not just from this, arising from the emerging digitized gig economy, and to level the competitive playing field among employers, including universal portable benefits that better protect all workers. The gig economy is, in many respects, just a term to refer to putting together a whole bunch of part-time jobs, no one part-time job having any health care benefits or any kind of significant benefits whatsoever. And when I hear that word gig, I think of a musician with a gig. And you hope if you're a musician that you have enough gigs to make some kind of a living. But it happens in academic life all the time now. When I finished at Loyola Marymount University, we had a department of the neighborhood of 40 people, but only 12 of them had full-time tenure-track jobs. And the majority of the teaching positions in the majority of schools today are held by part-time teachers. There's a joke at the graduate level. Rhodes Scholars, who are the Rhodes Scholars, the scholars who finish their graduate work and spend a lot of time on the road, going from one school to another school to another school, putting together part-time jobs. And you don't have to look at just at the academy. There are any number of retail outlets that will hire their workers to work 38 hours a week, precisely to prevent them from receiving benefits. And so this is a very concrete, very specific thing that the party wants to call attention to. Thoughts on that? How does it work in the boat work, Christopher?
Oh, well, you know, since oil dropped out, people on the platforms and on the rigs and stuff, they're making still the same amount of money and such, whereas in the maritime part of oil, they've slashed our pay more than in half, and have really slashed our benefits to the point to where I can't even afford to buy insurance through my company because it costs after the deductible, which, I mean, deductibles used to be like $300. Now it's like almost $3,000 for a deductible. Like I can't even afford that, you know. So I think I don't know. It really when it comes to the benefits, a lot of times I think now, especially for people that are in the range like me, I make $42,000 a year, and so when medical costs, like just medical insurance, is literally 25% of my gross income, you know, that's not a benefit. That's not even a benefit. When going to the doctor costs less if I pay with cash than it would if I use my insurance. Personally, I pay much more using insurance than I do if I just go there and say, hey, I'm going to pay cash. You know, like that's not a benefit. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this whole idea of the gig economy. I mean, obviously I don't have a gig. I go out, I work 28 days straight, and then I get off a week or two. I have so many thoughts on there that I couldn't really even get into it right now. Like, it's not enough time, But I have a lot of thoughts on it.
We'll certainly come back to it. I'm sorry to say that I sometimes tell lame jokes, and I can't help but tell a lame joke at this point. You know what the difference is between a dead snake on the road and a trombone player? No. Well, the difference is if I blow this, I'm just going to spit. The difference is that the snake had a gig.
The snake what?
Had a gig. It's impossible for trombone players to find work, and so they tell that sorry joke. All right. Well, Desmond, your turn, and then I think we ought to start to wrap things up.
I don't have much to say other than what I agree with Christopher. My situation is a bit different from his. My company actually gives me excellent insurance, and so it's harder for me to relate. But I do understand how, for most people, it is quite difficult, and that's why the American Solidarity Party has supported increased has supported social benefits like the public health care and stuff like that.
And it'll be a constant progress, and I know in thinking about your position in the party and being on the national committee, there's a debate right now. Should we focus on a few issues and really emphasize a few issues and hope to show how those few issues connect with a whole range of issues? Or should the party present itself in terms of the platform, which, what is it, Rhonda? We've been spending at least 2 months, and we have several items left, several planks left in the platform. Should the party try to be everywhere at once and hope to show how these issues interrelate? For example, the gig economy certainly doesn't help growing families with young children, such as Christopher's, or grown families with 8 children, such as Desmond's. If you want to have strong families, you have to have some sort of financial stability. And so these issues connect and interconnect, but how to shape them in order to gain membership and to make the party present to a wider public in lieu of advertising campaigns. And in some regards, I'm happy to be free of the advertising campaigns because they're so monotonous and idiotic and relentless. I oftentimes think of the Catholic worker that never, ever, ever advertised anywhere. It might very well have been, if it's not continuing to be, the most significant social practitioner in the Catholic Church. Well, ya basta. Rhonda, could you say a few summary words? Remind us of our missing friend, Bob Olson, and end our discussion in a prayer that will give us strength to go forward.
Oh, dear Lord, we thank you for Bob, who was a well-paid hockey sportscaster until he became a Catholic, and then he did Christian radio for the rest of his life. And the last 2 years or so with WCAT radio as a volunteer is running 21 programs and at age 85. So we thank you for his enormous work energies and for his desire to contribute to the kingdom of God till his last breath. But we pray that he will be healed and back with us, which is what he wants. And we thank you for all the work that's gone into this platform. And we pray that initiatives based on the platform may actually help to change our country around in this time of such crisis. Amen.
Amen. And a postscript, may Bob recover, and if not to the level of strength enjoyed by the late, great Gordie Howe, may he at least recover enough to rejoin us on our show. And may Desmond take heart and push ahead, and may Christopher rejoice in his new daughter with so beautiful a name. And next week, gentle auditors, next week we hope you join us again, and we will continue probably starting with some very loose ends from today's reflections, and then moving ahead to the next plank in the Solidarity Party platform and an update on background political maneuvering, especially in the great state of California, knowing that as California goes for better or for worse, so goes Texas. Isn't that true, Rhonda?
Well, I've only been here, I haven't been here a whole year yet, so
Wait
I was 35 years in California, so
all right. Thank you, one and all. God bless.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.